Okay, very nice. Ooh, my second live stream ever. Pull up my notes. And now immediately. Oh. And the gameplay footage. Hopefully the audio isn't too bad. Ah, what a nice thumbnail. Yeah, at the end I'll be talking about Indians and Vikings. A bit messy of a start. But let's go. Alright. I will probably be reading a lot since I wrote a lot of notes. This is just because it's way easier to keep track of the lot I'm talking about. You know, writing is like saving a part of yourself in the past, isn't it? So I get to save my intelligence of the past, or, well, it keeps my brain more open, doesn't it? Open. Oh no. Open is not good in this video. Oh, stream. I'll be mentioning it a lot. Right, let's start. I will be using political definitions, and don't complain about me being so political. Just like philosophy in the 1700s was math, biology, logics, psychology and all that, politics is everywhere. It's not as if everything is defined by politics, unless they are authoritarian. But politics can touch anything it wants or needs, so it's proper using political definitions. Don't shy away. Second, this time I plan to start slowly and then ramp up to the esoteric spiritual stuff that's hard to get into, or you might have a natural aversion to it. That's a good thing. So much spiritual stuff is just garbage. Maybe I'll manage to talk about that a tiny bit too, why some of it is garbage. But schizos can also make their own stuff anyways. The topics are logos, boomers, presumptions, economy, NPCs, normies, zombies or masses, the generations. I'll be talking about the generations too and how boomers affected everyone below them or ahead of them. Yeah, ahead of them chronologically. Then weakness, outlands, the forefront of frontlands, psychopaths in power, and lastly Indians versus Vikings. Topics are all in the bottom right corner, the thumbnail, or a few images in the top right corner, and gameplay footage in the bottom left corner or middle. A lot more gameplay footage, but I actually want or would prefer if the stream was just 30 minutes long. First off, to reconcile with normies, or they aren't bad or not, they aren't stupid or something like that. Logos and leverage. So logos is just an ancient definition of word or direction. Where you don't have a direction, you can see this in advertisements, where you don't have a direction, someone else is really glad to put their direction and their logos. The same way, you can do a favor for someone else, and for you it's nothing, but for someone else it makes their day. I would have used a metaphor of opening a door that's open, that you can lock or unlock on your side, and the other person is outside and don't have a key. Person outside doesn't have a key, but that's a bad analogy for what I'll be talking about regarding immigration. Ooh. Yeah, you can do a favor for someone else, and it's, as I said. And that's a lot of interactions, I think. Yeah, Reading a script award. Well. I wonder whether I just follow my notes or... Alright. Can you blame boomers for video games, cars and all that stuff being trash now? Or managerialism? Or antinatalism? No. Not full, at least. I think the nuclear family can be blamed on the same guy that caused suburban copy homes. Someone's powerful mistake. The real world doesn't work like order. So sometimes the one-to order is directed the wrong way, and here it clearly was, and it hurt a lot of people. This you can also see way back with Freud. There's a nice documentary, I always forget its name, by some British guy about how psychologicals or psychotherapy or whatever it's called, psychoscientists created advertising, advert banners and stuff like that. There was the suburban kind of order. They also made their kids into robots or brought them up horribly. And Freud's daughter or cousin, I think, a girl anyways in Freud's family line, tried Freud's approach on kids, and they just turned out horribly depressed and all like that. So that might also be a big reason for why the people follow, or why old people follow the state a lot. But of course there's always stuff like Vietnam and blah blah blah. We can get into that later. Maybe it actually is the one who made the suburbia a nuclear family and also wanted to make all the kids into robots, or well, they were brought up like robots to repress anger and all like that. Oh, and the 90s. After the 90s got wind of that, they contradicted it and it all turned out horribly. A detour from the normal, huh? Maybe it was a pathological issue in Freud and whoever made Suburbia. Anyways. The Uberboyo take-experiment on YouTube. Uberboyo made a video about an experiment about a part in the brain. He nicknamed it the Eye of Sauron, which you basically follow an in-group psychologically. If you turn it off, people become liberal because they don't need to adhere to some higher order. They become open to everything. Boomers are open to everything. They never needed a kind of order like in the Bible. Calling it order is maybe a bit far off. I think everyone gets vibe-based how boomers are, because they are such big members of society. You can't even say they are like the guy who desperately tries to be taken seriously. There's so many boomers they are taken seriously, and they themselves don't even notice that they should be grateful and desperate for that attention. Now I get why wokeism has so many contradictions. It's cause the ideology's holders don't have the capacity for cognitive dissonance. That's also a part in the Uberboyo video. And wokeism is necessary to talk about when talking about boomers. When Rome fell, the emperor didn't know what to do. Watch that Uberboyo video and the Golden One interview. I'll use the context of that a bit more later, or what I learned in that. Boomers media is boring as hell. I mean, in Germany there's 2 leftist shows paid by taxpayer money, and going from what I usually watch, Forefront Outland stuff, to these boomer late night shows, they are just so boring. They boomerized generations below them. I'll get to that later. Now, first off, forefront outland stuff. I'll talk more about the established later. The forefront or wasteland or outland in Professor Jiang talked about that. In an outland, people just fight, the barbarians or whatever. In the end, you could arguably say that the barbarians caused the downfall of Rome, or at least they were a third or a fourth of its outcome. In the outland, everyone is way stronger because they constantly fight. It's an outland, it's a harsh environment where, well, it's evolutionary pressure. An island with evolutionary pressure. Meanwhile, the kingdom, in there you can afford mistakes a bit, or you aren't as incentivized. Just watch the Professor Jiang video. Maybe it was his history video. Yeah, history is a cyclone. That's what the video is called. Like Sam Hyde, even Nick Fuentes, and a bunch of German stuff. Alt-right really is the outland. I mean, there was that study where they compared leftist, how separate or how much variety is in the two orientations. Leftism was very centered. They basically all had the same ideas. Meanwhile, the right was clustered as hell and full with different points. There you can also just see again that wokeism is over. It can't sustain itself under nature anymore. As much as civilization exists, nature still does. And this is proof. I'll get later to why boomer late night shows are opposite of the forefront outland stuff. So, how does this openness really look from the experiment on Oberboyo? I hope you remember what I said. This short term. Anyways, how does this openness really look? I bet you already know. It's sad, but I bet everyone who got access to this video has Man, I'm reading my notes and I write video again. It's a stream. My second stream ever. Has witnessed that kind of decadence. At some point I couldn't keep watching reality trash TV or sports. A Gen X, where I am that's just boomer light, talked to me about his life. And he never made a real choice. That's indeed how it looks. They are so economically prosperous they forgot how to make choices. They don't even have anything based on which they would prefer one choice over the other. They've never had to think about it. Then stuff like the horrible social support system in Germany appears. Granted, Argentinian Milei said that this kindness which resulted in National Socialism and Marxism is a Central European trait we need to turn from curse to blessing. The boomers just created something oppressive to every generation past it. Just because they keep watching TV forever, this liberal brain experiment that was never mentioned at Oberboyer's channel, it's not just about immigrants or foreigners or whatever, but boomers literally let anything in. I actually thought of this before, even knowing that, but with the logos where you don't have one, someone else is glad to put theirs. This is basically the definition of boomers. They didn't have any purpose or direction anywhere. The definition of coasting through life. And you might ask, how did they do anything? Well, a logos is a direction. A direction can be given by anyone, but all their directions are given by definitely not their conscious critical thinking selves. It's carnal desires, friends, or people who wanted them to be somewhere and do something. I used to think that the trust in the government and state was so big in boomers because back then the state and government actually were good and did good. Now I know that's just because boomers are adult babies, they are open to anything, so of course they idolize and trust anything good sounding. Well, it can't be defined as trust, since they never doubted anyone. They literally never learned to, but would need to create the contrast of trusting, making sense. The fall of Rome bystander archetype. And on this idolizing the state and government, the boomers obviously have it very easy to do because they are open, but before that, the generations before the boomers were also groomed into idolizing the government. This was all after World War II, I think, or maybe 30 years or 20 years, or even just 5 years after World War II, the generations who fought World War II noticed something. I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, or I don't want to sound like one, but yeah, whatever. Zoomer Historian is good. Watch Zoomer Historian. LOL. Waterfall Hist Jam. Hilarious video by Snickling talking about the cognitive dissonance pointed this out to me again. I speak English on this channel, but I could. I think my German skills. I practiced all my psychology in English, so I wonder how easy it'd be for me to translate my best takes into German. But whatever. The cognitive dissonance pointed this out to me again. The right goes crazy over how much cognitive dissonance is in the contradictions of the left. Did I write about that before, right here? Yeah, the left's one of the major contradictions in the left is that poor people are, or third worlders are stupid because they are poor. And this is a huge thing with leftism. This is deep. They say that third worlders suck at doing tests or exams or whatever because of socio-economic causes or situation. But they also hate the rich, obviously. They want to funnel all the money from the rich into poor people. So why do leftists even hate rich people? They should be the best example of leftism, because their socio-economic situation is the best, because they're rich. So why does the left not like them? You can tell how one leftism is clashing with Marxism, and they just made that concentric meshed up thingy, and they can't go away from it because they don't have cognitive dissonance. So it's just all kinds of contradictions meshed up. They never managed to clash them against each other and bring something new out. And this is huge in the left. Right here. The leftists externalize their power. As you already hopefully noticed when I talked about socio-economic states deciding someone's intelligence, that makes little sense. It can work, but it's a bad statistic. Maybe how much someone practiced something would be a better statistic, and also genuinely practiced something and actually felt good when succeeding at something they practiced. That's how you actually learn. Leftists externalize all their power. For example, the Charlie Kirk's assassination lately. It's a big... to many people it should have opened their eyes, but nobody talked about it. I think only very few actually noticed. But the left starts to talk about gun laws or whatever, because Charlie Kirk was shot. This is a complete failure, but the left can't do anything else but be like that. Actually, and that's kind of like me, but the Reddit kind of intellectual who uses statistics gun laws didn't kill Charlie Kirk, a guy did. In fact, even a leftist did. But they can't handle that. It has to be gun laws. Casinos. I recently talked to a bunch of people and they also all again blamed for gambling addicts. They blamed the casinos. They give you food, this makes you gamble. That's not true, it makes no sense. Food can't make you gamble. They externalize all their power, and well, in what they do, you can see it's actually not that bad to think to externalize power, or well, if you want to be strong it's bad, but when trying to help people, externalizing power or assuming you don't have power can actually help people, but not as much as actually knowing and getting everyone to internalize their power. They put it on external things like, oh no, the advertising is so good, so now we need to ban all advertising. That's a bad approach. Also because of what it leads to with gun laws. It's a people problem. So, why I talk about leftism so much, even when this is a normie boomer stream. Leftism was actually made the normie ideology. Now this is just a coincidence, but when people were sent into Vietnam, it was all rural Americans, also a lot of rural Americans. It's definitely not a coincidence that city people were less drafted into Vietnam, and at the same time city people are leftist. Well, why did I write that? Anyways, Hollywood actually destroyed rural TV shows. It used to be that rural and local states in America had their own TV shows, but Hollywood used connections to destroy all that and become a monopoly. This is also where hillbilly became a slur, or not slur, but derogatory. You use hillbilly to dislike rural people. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Anyways, that's also another evidence for leftism being the normie ideology. Of course, that's tilting right now. Oh, again, right here a note. Outlands make people strong. Yeah, I'm really not... I guess I'm not too well prepared, but this is probably better than my first stream, because I'm more focused, even when it's given out worse. Outlands make people strong. Rhodesia, and if it's not YouTube, it's alright, or well, soon it won't be, cause it's so strong and left to the... The ones who talk and work with alt-right people, this is Uberboyo2, are the ones doing good content on YouTube. It's on bubbles. YouTube has become a divided up environment. And now I also get why YouTube should ban the Indians stealing content and reacting and content farms. I've looked for a solution to justify this for quite a while, banning all the content farm junk. And it's this. The most popular videos on YouTube, I think, and music are from 2016. Despacito or Whoopin' Gangnam Style and stuff like that. The time was very different. To encourage good content and competition that's worth it, you ban idiots. The cool and smart people naturally gravitated toward unclaimed lands. That was old YouTube. New YouTube isn't unclaimed anymore. So the purpose behind YouTube needs to shift from an organization that gets to act like it's unclaimed but isn't, to something like Odysseus, because that would be better business. That would make them better business, actually, banning the content farms and stuff like that, because then smart people come back to the stuff they've taken away. This is how, this is just a suggestion. But I started thinking about this when thinking about free market, because I actually want both good to happen to me and the free market to happen. And how could both be at the same time if these content farms vanish? Tests like these are also good to do, because I'm pretty surprised that this time the outlands are the truth and all that. Of course, history decides the truth, it seems. But this is just a disconnected... I should be way better at talking. And I have to keep going because I don't want to create big emptiness in the stream. Alright, fourth. Just the rebellious Zoomer tirade on boomers doesn't work. So here's a question. Because boomers can be smart, but notice whether they don't have cognitive dissonance because they don't have conflicting beliefs, which leftism is full of, like people being dumb because of socioeconomic... Oh, well, here we are, I already said that. So the left needs to pump the money, but then the rich aren't the poster childs of the left, but evil oligarchs who stole something. Do boomers, don't feel cognitive dissonance because their brain is unnatural? Does your boomer have flaws that aren't ironed out because they could have easily afford to keep them? Is your Gen Z considerate of your effort and the difficulty? That's what I heard someone talk about. My Gen Z boss is so considerate. And is your boomer almost narcissistic, definitely not grateful at all, like a child that's been pampered too much? If just one of these qualities apply to a boomer you think of, then that's a boomer, as we assume. So good luck finding one that isn't. This is more in the context of boomers in other countries. The generations might be a bit shifted, but the economic boom in general. There's probably countries like Africa. I don't imagine boomers exist in Africa even, as boomers as we know them. But Africa is a whole nother story. I mean, leave it to them to figure out what they are doing. I recently watched a video of an African talking about why Africans don't know the concept of maintenance, and he was called racist by his own people. Yeah, sometimes you need to leave him to yourself. Leave him to themselves. Where was I? Gen Z, meanwhile, stops drinking and all. And how did boomers manage to even over-safeify the world anyways? I'll get to that. Hygiene needs to be redefined. That's another topic. Yeah, hygiene... I think hygiene needs to be seen as holistic again. Way too much hygiene. It ruins your gut microbiome. Let babies walk around outside, crawl on the ground full of dirt, get rained on maybe too. Not too dangerous, of course, but it's become too clean. But of course we don't want Indian levels of dirty. But it is crazy how Indians can maybe eat street food and not get a life-threatening infection. I mean, I heard of someone who did eat Indian street food and then bam, hospital. It's crazy how no institution or organization could survive boomers. Christianity, for example, full with woke stuff now just cause it's not boomers' nature to guard or preserve anything. Normally life tells you what to do, with harsh lessons included. You could feel sorry that they didn't get that. Indeed, actually crazy how no institution that's supposed to preserve an old order in case some decadence like this happens, survived the boomers. This is just because no matter how much outside stuff, this is consciousness division again, no matter how much Christianity tells you what to do or whatever, boomers are so open to anything, they just break it. The belief, the ideology, the religion, whatever is supposed to preserve society just slides right off them and falls down the abyss. They don't take it in at all because they let everything flow through them. And so they flow like water themselves. And this is what really could have been if, imagine the generation that fought World War II was immortal. Then they would have, like Zuma Historian talked about a questionnaire that was sent to veterans, British veterans of World War II. If they were immortal, they would have fought a civil war over what has happened to Britain. But no, the boomers came along and they became the goal of someone else. Because they are so open, so anything someone else tells them what to do, they do it. And they themselves too open to their own carnal desires and stuff like that. And the good economy makes this even worse because they actually get to do all these crazy things they are open to. Why does George Soros even fund leftists? No, I'm not jealous. Instead of the right. Yeah, imagine if George Soros funded the right. But George Soros followed a guy, Karl Popper. Wait, I wrote about this guy twice. Yeah. Karl Popper is basically... here we go. The ideology he followed. And guess what Karl Popper made? He can be called the patient zero boomer, the original boomer. You know how some philosophers don't figure stuff out but just write down what they pathologically are, and then want everyone in the whole world to be like that? That everyone should be like them, or they want, well, whatever. Hermeticism and you are the world, or the world is a reflection of you and you are a reflection of it. That's a hermetic principle. And this applied to Karl Popper. His dream was that of an open society, of a world without borders. He had to rush and write this great idea down, and of course the boomer is without borders, so regardless of him, his ideas were followed, because it was already in the boomer's psyche to be as open to anything. Grr, Karl Popper, evil guy. Not evil, but the original boomer. He just is the boomer's psychology. Alright. There's not so much... Yeah, about... double the length of the stream now and then you are at the end. Maybe. This is just an assumption, but since boomers are open to anything and what they are becomes their virtues, for example having good economy without having to work for it, is their virtue. They boomerize their kids too, and the kids become too pampered and entitled. I had to restructure my brain to not be entitled like that. Yes, it's true. Their virtues are what they are. Normally in a good self-improvement type evolution, you become what your values are, and you first get good values. They, however, cheated this, and they make their virtues what they already are. They are open to everything, so of course they will justify immigration to the end. And this isn't limited to boomers, boomerized normies, or just weaklings who also make their virtues what they already are instead of having good virtues and striving for them. They are all like that. And in a big part, this psychology of the boomer is the reason for helicopter parenting as well. Everyone's getting news about evil serial killers, and they are all open to the news as if it was the real world. No nuance, and their real nice neighborhood was full of Cold War. Their real and their real nice neighborhood is just now full with Cold War serial killers. It's not. Boomers don't have nuance. I had a boomer lie to tell me that if you don't click with someone, that's for no reason at all. That's just it. You don't click. Maybe this is another reason for why the established late night shows are so boring. Boomers don't have nuance, so of course the point isn't to find contradictions and things that clash and connections. The point is just to say whatever is. The point is to say what is. This annoys me a bit with stupid people. Often they don't have life in them. They don't talk about connections or symbols or clashes or stuff that has nuance. And this is of course only the not actually stupid people across all history, just a normie who has been particularly affected by the current agenda and didn't think it over because boomerization already kicked in before they got the current agenda and anything. Basically, their whole personality is built on this non-foundation, maybe you could call it anti-foundation because of how unfoundational it is, because everything just seeps right through from the bottom to the top and it's poisoned. They just say grey terms. Stuff like, I like the state because it is a state. I mean, explaining what a state is, and then I don't like it. I don't like when it's also mean talking about this, because they look some look very happy, like a midwit looks happy when he talks about what a state is, and he's happy not because he makes any real connections, but just says what a state is, and he thinks it's like thinking, and he gets happy since thinking makes everyone happy, unless you think about bad stuff. But mental exercise in general is very similar to physical exercise or cardio. But that's not, you don't figure anything out if you tell me what a state is like. It's nothing new. What a waste. Also in fiction and art, my brother, who isn't a boomer but still boomerized, just uses words like good world building to describe a show. I get that you need to start somewhere either too, but it's scary if you are unaware to how you look, and then so biased you'd call me calculating for pointing this grayness out. Makes me feel like I live in some kind of opposite world. Yeah. One thing I like is that the smart light boomers, at least where I am, who are 40 to 50, actually hate the older ones too, cause they are taking away their rent. This is kind of a bad bubble among these anks, but this is what a bad economy causes. Even people who are close can start ripping each other apart when the walls start to tighten. The walls being their money, rent and work. Do they even care about their country besides making it into an unnamed liberal leftist zone, a la Francis Fukuyama's history has ended? I do think that democracy might change in 100 or 200 years, or even just 50. In fact, here in Germany, democracy was massively changed after you-know-who, Hitler. It turned into a party system with a few complexities in an attempt to divide up the power. But as I said last stream, the German psyche doesn't care and just bankrolls this sophisticated democracy. We made it so nobody has all the power. It's very safe. Something like Hitler surely can't happen again. Well, guess what had just happened again? Wokeness. By being obedient and following a single logos. If in a democracy everyone always votes the same, it's no different than a monarchy, with managers leading instead of a king. No, it doesn't rhyme. That's why people start thinking about monarchy again nowadays. That's also where neo-medievalism takes its niche, with company CEOs or presidents becoming kings of new domains, like Samsung Town in South Korea, and I actually prefer this over current managerialism. Is it a boomer tirade? Is it too mean? But then I remember my disappointments and Mein Kampf. I'm kidding. Mein Kampf translated is my battle, so it's a really easy phrase to say. Mein Kampf. Oh man. Oh, they are losers. their brain polluted and their cities polluted. That doesn't sound very nice. Anyways, regarding pollution, India. Okay, now I wanna get to the spiritual stuff, but before I get to the esoteric, spiritual definitions, let's see if I missed anything. So, the topics were boomers, presumptions, economy, normies, generations, weakness, outlands, psychopaths and power, how the hillbillies and rurals got shafted by Hollywood and cities. I mean, by what I said, you should know that cities, I hope you get the context I expanded on. You already know how cities and all that stuff like that, leftism, blah blah blah, it's basic. Just summed up how it works, but I didn't. I only said the synthesis of the facts without saying the facts. So it's a bit mean I complained about boomers not saying the facts when... about boomers saying only what is, rather than a conclusion or synthesis or contradiction or clash. I say that way too little, I think. I mean, I can barely explain it to myself if I don't get the facts, but the conclusion, I kind of can extrapolate what the conclusion came from. Hope you can too. This is about me not mentioning... where was it? How... well, my writing is very tight, or maybe my thinking is very tight. That's why I didn't take long to say that cities are leftist. Like, America had, before a big kind of change, I can't even know when, but everyone's saying it. In the Cold War times, before dynamite was banned, and guess why they had a reason to ban dynamite back then. Leftists would just bomb everything. I mean, have you seen Fight Club? Fight Club is actually very accurate to how that time was. It's watching Fight Club now, I mean, someone who grew up in this time, in the 2000s or something. Maybe it was after 9/11, but it could have been way before already. But Fight Club just seems very fictional to me. Like, from the beginning on, I thought like, oh yeah, they are doing the movie thing where they are doing something incomprehensible of bombing statues and doing like inland terrorism. No, that's not unfeasible at all. In the Cold War it constantly happened. I recently saw a video by OKI about a leftist extremist gang of rich kids which all just got together, made dynamite and bombed all kinds of stuff. One of the less famous leftist terrorist groups, in fact, was all the Bolsheviks. America actually had terrorism caused by Americans. It's crazy. And there you can also see that leftism way then could lead to insanity. But because of the Nazis, I won't go there. It's not as if I'm saying anything that's unreasonable, or would say anything that's unreasonable. I hope that's obvious. Right. Is that it? Logos and leverage. Yeah, did I say about... yeah, well enough, the topic was in. Right, 40 minutes, I wanted to end it at 30. Now the esoteric definitions. Right, Vikings versus Indians. The Indian part comes later. Yeah. Alright. I want to talk about Celtic or Germanic paganism and how it could work in comparison to boomers. Applied it to boomers. There's a certain transition you make in your life as you age. Thor is Odin's son, and you kinda turn from Thor, a young warrior, we know him from Marvel movies, to Wotan, a knowledge holder, more wisdom-like, over the chaotic conquering of Thor. Did boomers ever transition, as irresponsible as they are, and so the systems collapse under them, because they never got wisdom, Wotan? In the 1400s or some, the Teutonic Crusades, they had a crusade against paganism in Northern Europe. That was knights and nations uniting against pagan clans. Could you see it as the arrival of a golden age, with the anti-chaos of a united knights organization, versus the paganistic chaos of clans that fight everyone and each other and constantly rise? And by rise I mean, again, that Nietzschean paganism is a philosophy that applies during the rise and falls, and something like the myth of Odysseus, where personal immortality is advised against in comparison to your descendants and ancestors, and carrying on the myth, that kindness and unity against the odds and ego of Odysseus, versus, alright, again, that kindness and unity against the odds and ego of Odysseus versus the chaos and natural strength, one person over everyone forever, of paganism. And in that way boomers were just weaklings who couldn't get up the age of Odysseus and fell to their ego and ignorance, and who even in the pagan paradigm never grew from Thor to Wotan either. Isn't that a nice take? Once again, watch the Golden One and Oberboyo interview. I mainly got the context from that. I applied it to boomers wonderfully. I almost want to read it all again. Maybe I post it as a post right after the stream on YouTube community thingy. This is less related to boomers, but due to Indians, it still fits normies. So let's talk about nihilism a bit. You could also say that one part in the rise of nihilism was that boomers are open to everything. And of course that's the Luciferian part of the Rudolf Steiner tree of Ahriman Christ. Lucifer, Ahriman as order, Lucifer as chaos, Christ as child of God. And if you were a whole universe, you couldn't be conscious because you are too focused, because you are focused on too many parts. There's a good reason why we don't feel or control all of our cells. We would be some kind of, well, we would be a universe. The universe isn't conscious, obviously. But it is very complex. And no. If you argue the universe is conscious, you have your definitions all wrong. Could you say God is conscious? Yes. But I'm just throwing that out there for the kinds of people who do say that the universe is conscious. It's popular, but very rare. I think very few people actually believe it, but it's a popular theory because of how it sounds. Like, what? The universe is conscious? There is universal intelligence, yes, but the universe is not conscious. It couldn't be. It's way too many things. Luciferian. Way too dispersed. Again, my spiritual worldview says everything is conscious, and it defines consciousness by how focused you are. The universe is so dispersed, it's basically not conscious. A rock is so focused, it's also not conscious. There needs to be a certain balance of chaos and order. Alright. Oh, and nihilism is not atheism. I heard a guy say that atheism was actually a pretty smart invention for spiritual privacy sakes. Interesting. A lot of schizos again. As I said, there's a lot of junk, but when you really search for spiritual stuff, it's very difficult to get through the junk. Right, let's talk afterlife. Imagine if nihilists or atheists actually get forced into an afterlife. And I got thinking about an afterlife ever since I learned about or got wind of a guy who thought of the astral realm. It was hilarious. This book is confirmed by 2 independent clairvoyants, sometime in the 16 or 1800s. Guy talked about the afterlife. I mean, not the afterlife, but the astral realm, where everything is 4D or something crazy like that. After learning about quantum entanglement and knowing that a lot of theology, religions, or stuff like that, actually have an afterlife, I made my own theories about the afterlife. I basically believe in it now. Anyways, that's not very important. Imagine if nihilists or atheists actually get forced into an afterlife. Of course, maybe some mean Christians would be happy if they don't get one. Yeah, I think if people die while sad or mad, they will just maybe stay forever sad or mad. This is another stuff with quantum ghost theory. These are a bunch of theories I have that are really good, but I won't say them yet. Because why would I say them yet? I would need some motivation to tell them someone. Yeah. Anyways, the Indian take. Now for real. Indians versus Vikings. Alright, last stream I almost called Indians, or the majority of Indians, processing power. The most likely theory is that the afterlife is held up by the living. Yes. I can't shy away anymore, as the stream's intro or the politics disclaimer, that I use definitions from politics. So, the afterlife is held up by the living, quantum ghosts and all that, and India believes in reincarnation. Therefore, they don't put effort into a heaven. Heaven is also the best future, or what do they call it? Akashic records. Fate. In the anime Fate, it's Akashic records or whatever. Or quantum motherships, that's a theory from the 80s, and psychedelic people of a mothership. There are a bunch of revelations, but you'd need to be me to do it properly. But anyways. So maybe their religion actually holds them back, makes them Indian. Yeah, in different circumstances, 2016, Indian could have been deemed as a slur. I don't think that's far off. But it's funny that Indian is now used like that. That's actually the same with the N-word. I just want to say, I mean Spanish. The N-word comes from Spanish and Latin. They couldn't have made black a slur, obviously, it's English. But they could have made the Latin one into a slur. Anyways. There's a nice German video about that of a school. Political correctness was a problem, and Germany actually knew, or Europe actually knew that American political correctness is a problem, but somehow just infiltrated anyways. Maybe through Hollywood. Anyways. I mean, ask an average Indian whether they'd prefer to reincarnate into a worm or as another Indian like themselves. Obviously, they wouldn't like either. They wanna ascend. Meanwhile, they wanna ascend. Like this. I hope you get where I'm going with this. Like, at least the worst of heaven, which is just believing in the afterlife and not caring while alive, at least that's still holding up the afterlife. Meanwhile, the worst of reincarnation is just not caring about being alive. Maybe that holds the Indians back from making discoveries and inventing. It's reincarnation decadence. So maybe even atheists are better than Indians in terms of what traits their worldview give them. They live with a certain expectation of reincarnating. So if you had an expectation of What would you do if you can reincarnate and are in a caste system? You just wait. You wouldn't care because you want to reincarnate to a better place. Even kindness doesn't matter if you don't invent. It's a sin of sloth. You wouldn't care because you want to reincarnate to a better place. Basically, what's come over India is the sin of sloth. But unlike heaven, where you want to die to a better place and where dead family members are, reincarnating doesn't have the collective unconscious, astral realm, Akashic records, etc. Even the European Vikings had Valhalla, and that's why I think afterlife is essential psychologically. Every great empire talked about religion. In America's constitution, it's "in God we trust" or something like that. The Soviets knew religion was important. And well, wokeism is a religion in itself, you could argue. But the afterlife, I think it's really important for people to believe in an afterlife, because it's like quantum topics adjacent. Metaphysics adjacent. Afterlife is very simple. Wait, is it? It's actually not. But assuming there is an afterlife, I think you act better than assuming you could reincarnate. Of course, both is possible. Yeah. Man, I love such good takes. Could really mix it up there. I mean, Japan, India, Germany, leftism. Man, these are such good takes. Know the psychology of a whole country. India, Japan, Germany, leftism, and now boomers. But Uberboyo really helped me a lot. So before ending the stream, let's flash some images again. Let's see. Yeah, I might be able to use this. First, the Lucifer Alman Christ. Here we go. Is it gonna show? Nah, it's not. Then I make a new scene. Yep, there we go. Ooh, a bit dangerous maybe. Can you see my cursor? Here it is. So, Ahriman, Lucifer, and villains, Light and Kira, Yoshikage. Up here would be Christ. I mean, everyone knows what Jesus Christ is, right? It's also Christ actually means Christ isn't Jesus' after-name. It's just a title. It's Anointed One, translated in Greek. Let's see what's next. So I have that thing that I combined with Lucifer and Christ tree. Where the heck is it? While I look for it, you can keep looking at this. Ah, here we have one. Yo, what? Hello? Why isn't the thing capturing it? Alright, I will just use something else. Hey! Here we got the full one. Here, this one. I combined the Lucifer Ahriman Christ tree with this tree to make everything conscious. But I really talked very little about this tree. It's I made this, and you can use it kind of everywhere. What else do we have? Vikings, reincarnation, Indians, what was I talking about? I can probably just... do I have no other images to show? No, I don't. Let's actually put the notes on the screen. Ooh, what a mess. Shoehorning the notes in here is probably way too... whatever. That was the best take I had. Here, that remains my favorite take. Oh yeah, I wanted to show the Uberboy with the videos I watched. That's gonna be a mess too. Hello, let me get into... Here we go. Uberboy. Of course it's all messed up. Yo! He talked to Professor Jiang? I mean, I only watched one video in the film. Get in here. Gameplay footage going on. Yo, what a coincidence. The snake in Medieval 2. Snake, serpent, stands for cunning. The assassin using it makes a lot of symbolic sense. So which video was it? This video right here. It's a bit different as he says it. I believe more in my version of the interpretation of the experiment. Wait, it is exactly like he says. Anyways. Yeah, this one. This is where I learned about Celtic paganism and whatever. Alright, that's it. I can turn the stream off. The gameplay footage ended also abruptly. 1 hour? That's fine. As I took less details, I think. Yeah. I want other people to know these takes, man. I at least want to tell someone about it. And it's not as if I don't have. The Sufis, ancient Muslim priests or spiritual philosophers. I like how China and all had monks. I mean, Europe also had monks, but Europe is more known for the philosophers of the Enlightenment period, I think. Master Eckhart is a good example of priest who actually studied God and maybe found some groundbreaking stuff. This is this. Let me just hide it. The point of the stream is not spiritually. The point of the stream is not spirituality. So I'll just end it right now. Because I don't need to talk about some Sufi stuff. And I can talk about a lot more about my quantum theories and where the many evidence, I mean someone else believing it from 200 years ago is evidence, I guess. So that's it, the boomer correction. normie stream. It's over. I talked about this, and yeah, finally paganism, not paganism, but all kinds of ideas of afterlife beating the Indian. That's the stream. This time I'll end it here first. Bye.